Next question. Um, can you elaborate on the challenges you faced in the first few months of building the company? How long did it take for you to arrive at the final iteration of the product? Let's start with Ashish.
So the next question is, beyond the ideation and prototype phase, what other hurdles did you face in building an IoT company? For example, hardware startups are prone to collapsing when they face insurmountable problems during the manufacturing cycle. So I guess like one is like manufacturing, and did you face like regulation problem? So let's start with Anthony.
Sure. I think that's a very relevant question. I think manufacturing is a difficult thing. I mean, hardware is hard, right? That's why they call it hardware. I think one of the things that we really face at the beginning, regulations is so important, especially in a lock space when you're dealing with security. At the beginning, we thought that just make a lock and you can sell globally, but I think we could never be further from the truth. That could never be further from the truth because Australia has their own standards of locks that you can install on the door, different fire rating standards, different building code that you need to comply with when you put a lock on the door. When you go to the US, you have different kind of standards as well. Or if you go to China, on the other side, there's no standards. So there's like 100 different kinds of door locks and different kind of door kind of specifications. And so at the beginning when we made our first lock, we just went to where we thought the market was big. Out from Singapore, the nearest place was Australia. We went there together with Airbnb, and we tried to deploy our locks there. But very fast, within 2 months, we realized that our locks do not comply with the building standards in Australia. We do not comply with the fire regulation standards, and just basic hardware standards that we were blindsided by. At the point in time, we did not have this whole knowledge about locks. We were really just a couple of people who were technology geeks and with software background. So we had to pull back the company back to Singapore, where we comply with the regulations and we could deploy, and that really gave us a very big learning, saying that it's not the product that you're trying to make. You really need to understand the market conditions, the regulations, the regulatory bodies, because that is actually one big thing that might stop your company from growing. And then on the other side, on manufacturing, we were when you are working with small volumes, you really couldn't choose to work with a big factory like a Foxconn or something like this. You end up working with a smaller factory, and what happens is then the negotiations as well as the control on the factory becomes a bit out of control. They might delay a little bit on delivery times. They might swap out materials and things like that just to make sure that and you might not really know. And I think it's also a knowledge thing that in our early founding team, we didn't really have manufacturing knowledge. And so I'll say that as with many companies, whether it's hardware or software, I think one of the biggest challenge as you get past the early hump of getting the initial product is when you're trying to scale, you need good people on the team, people with the relevant knowledge on manufacturing, people with the relevant knowledge on technology, and with the relevant research background to enable you to scale up in a good way. And that's really what we've been really focused on. Ever since we started bringing in the first couple of fundraising into the company, we've been looking at bringing on people with good hardware background who knows how to buy locks and sell locks and install locks. In fact, one of the first person that we brought on was this guy called Matthew. He has this 15 years of experience selling locks, making locks. He could tell what kind of lock it is just by listening to the way it locks. It's that kind of experience that you need. And we were very lucky that he joined the team at the end of 2016 and helped us got our first couple of products to market after that. And eventually we brought in a lot more professional people. And I think without the people on the team, we won't be able to get to the kind of scale that we have today. Yeah.
I think you mentioned a couple years back that you had problems with manufacturing in one country, and then you had to replace that, and then you have to create different channel of manufacturing as well, right?
Yep. Yep. Yeah, I think manufacturing is I think is not a fun job, you see, because everything is made in China today, right? So the most important thing is to go to China and start looking for someone to make your idea for you. And if you go to in Shenzhen where we have our office now, you go to this place called Huaqiangbei. So once you go to Huaqiangbei, you will find the iPhone 10 there before iPhone 10 is launched. Everything is built and manufactured and copied there. And I would say that going into that kind of market with no background and experience in it is essentially you got to pay your tuition fees. And I'll say that we were quite fast in it. We went there, got our first 1 or 2 batches of product rolling, and then we had to keep moving so that we could keep up with quality. We could keep up with the credit terms that we could work with them. We could also keep up with the kind of factories that we want to select and work with. From like a factory that was kind of people just putting things together with a hand, we started shifting to factory with automation, with nice clean kind of environment, which is a lot more in ethos with the company goal of quality first, right, and customer first. Yeah, so I think at the beginning, really beggars can't be choosers. So and we had to get something out of the market for trials. You could try that, but as we went along, we had to keep upgrading our factories and bring on the relevant good people with the experience to run manufacturing kind of division for the company in China. Yeah.
Talking about
Yep.
that iPhone X was copied, right?
Mhm.
Is there a way you prevent your design or your idea from being stolen?
Right. Yeah. I think there are 2 answers to this, right? The first one is you can always file patents. You can always file design patents, utilities patents around the design that you make. But really, I think when it comes down to manufacturing, or it comes down to that, something can always be copied, something can always be circumvented. And I think for us as we build out our solution, one thing that we really focus on a lot is to try to ensure that our solutions will or I'll put it the other way. I think we go into this business knowing that our locks will be copied at some point. The hardware will definitely be copied. And so what are the things that we can defend, right? I mean, number one is the software solutions and the technology that we put into the chip behind our locks. The high security protocol, the relevant kind of, like in Singapore, we have this IMDA certification for cybersecurity. We have, relevant kind of Bluetooth protocols that we write ourselves, that, is the brain behind the lock is proprietary to us. And while the lock can be copied, the software takes a bit longer to copy. But I think the more important thing for us is really to build on the network and partnerships that we have in the market, because I think that is the thing that creates a very strong barrier to entry. So at the beginning, we knew that while we have the initial solution, while we have that 1 or 2 years of runway before someone else does the same thing, we had to build the partnership with Airbnb. We had to build our partnership with Booking.com. We had to build our partnership with Agoda.com in Thailand. We had to build relevant partnerships with property developers so that we tie in a longer kind of ecosystem partnership that now with an Airbnb, for example, you can go to Airbnb, you can buy our locks through there because they recommend, and then once you make a reservation on Airbnb, we automatically are able to generate a code for you to check in your guest. And this entire ecosystem tie up makes it a lot more defensible business model in the long run, which makes it a lot hard for someone to copy. And so today we have maybe more than 100 different kind of integration partners, from the small ones to the local partners, all the way to global kind of integration partners. And that is what the team really keeps pushing forward, continuously innovating on the technology and finding partners to be part of an entire ecosystem. Yeah.
I think that's a great advice. Actually, that was one of the questions from WJ. What is your advice to prevent new and existing competitors from copying hardware technology? Thank you, Anthony. Thank you. So Aashish, how about you? Have you faced that problem of manufacturing and regulation?
Yeah, so basically for manufacturing is definitely, I mean, there's a lot of nightmares for manufacturing. I think there are a lot of different manufacturers out there, a lot of different vendors that you have to choose from, and also suppliers of components. So I think manufacturing is one of the biggest things that you really have to focus on a lot when you're doing a hardware company. Basically, spread your eggs initially out as much as possible. Try different manufacturers out. Try to have small batches with, test it out with different types of vendors, and keep testing. So I think manufacturing is a process of being able to just find a right match of a person or of an entity to manufacture some certain parts of your products. So what I think for us, what we did, we kind of split things up a bit, where we did certain PCB aspects within one manufacturer, casing with another, assembly in another place. So we just we made it a bit complex, but we also kind of made it to a point where we were able to even separate the quality accordingly. So quality is a big thing. So we have multiple checks of quality all the way through. So it's not just us checking it. So as companies receive certain boards for encasing and assembly, a quality check is done there. Then we do it other quality checks in different areas. So I think the biggest thing that we found in manufacturing is that there's a lot of mistakes, a lot of quality issues. The first few batches is perfectly fine, and second batches, the resistors are not resistors. I mean, the diodes are put in the wrong direction, MOSFETs are put in the wrong way. The soldering system, I mean, the soldering pads itself they added too much solder, so there was a lot of short circuits. So there were a lot of issues for sure. Manufacturing is a big problem, especially for RF or radio frequency technology. We have a lot of components. I mean, we have thousands of components on a board. It's just crazy, and they're all tiny components. In fact, I tried to actually solder one of the boards myself once. I sneezed, and the component just flew away like dust, and it's so small. It's just ridiculous. So it's yeah. I mean, there's a lot of nuances, a lot of problems. So I think what really helped us down the road is being able to set up like automated testing systems. So they can test the components. That's our own. So we buy the testing system, we control it, we put the software as well to test the hardware as it comes off the line, and we reject it before it gets shipped over. So rejecting hardware before it gets shipped over is extremely important. It's a huge cost saver. It's unbelievable, time and cost saver. So those are the things which we're trying to do and we're doing as we move along. But manufacturing is a nightmare, that's for sure. I think we're still experimenting with other vendors, and we're also now looking into contract manufacturers as well. So I think the more you get involved initially and try and be really involved in every process is always the core of it. Then maybe later on start getting contract manufacturers involved, because that way you know exactly well, they can't bullshit you. That's a big thing. So they come up with all these timelines which don't really make sense when it comes to quality, when it comes to quotation. I mean, we can get a quotation for a PCB within a day. When I approach a contract manufacturer, they say, "Oh, it takes 3 weeks to get a quotation." I'm like, "What? Why? I mean, what's the difference?" So you need to have comparisons. That's the biggest thing. I think that helps a lot as we move along. So that's a manufacturing side. I'm sure there's a lot of other stories in manufacturing I can go into, but apart from that, I think regulation is always going to be a problem for us. We are radio frequency focused. Every country that we go to, regulation is going to be an issue. Like Indonesia is a problem for sure. Japan has ARIB, China has CCC, in Europe is CE, in America and pretty much the rest of the world is FCC. So it's a quite I mean, it's quite tough in that perspective. But what's nice is that radio frequency has been around for quite a while. We've already got basic regulation on getting done. We're getting regulation done for FCC now, and I mean, basically, we just follow the same standards as a smartphone. But it is definitely a tough area. It's basically kind of a make and break of any RF or wireless company for sure. So regulation is tough.
So do you do manufacturing in China as well?
Yeah, so we do our PCB and PCBAs in Hong Kong, which is basically gets shipped to China, to Shenzhen.
To Shenzhen. That's
yeah.
Right. So it seems like right now, I mean, like people are saying that Shenzhen are the go-to place for hardware, right?
Definitely. I mean, like our enclosures are done in Johor. Assembly will be done in Johor. So it depends on how you want to go about it. Taiwan is fantastic as well for a lot of the PCB in quality. We just went with a place the reason why we chose this company is mostly because of turnaround. So at different phases of your company, there's different sort of priorities. So initial phase is all about prototyping. So whenever we make a design change in the PCB, we want to make sure we get the PC back, turned around within 3 weeks back to our office. So that design change, when you trigger it, we get it back in 3 weeks. It doesn't matter how much cost it is or even quality, whatever. As long as we get a few PCBs, 50% of it works. It doesn't matter. We'll just kind of fix it and make sure that the design changes work. But then as we move along, it's all about volumes and quality. So now our design changes are locked in. So now it's all about how do we manage volumes, manage quality. Those are the two important questions. So depending on what phase you are in the development cycle. So now for quality aspects, we might do it in Taiwan. And also there's some within Singapore or in Johor, even Batam as well. So that we're kind of looking at other places now for the quality aspects.
Okay. Well, since there's a question from WJ about for you, let me just ask it right now. How do you prevent signal jamming or interference for your IoT devices?
Yeah, so I mean, in terms of IoT in general, there's multiple. I mean, for us, for wireless power, we have channel training. So what's interesting about that is that whenever certain channels don't work very well, we will swap channels. And we avoid channels that are used or crowded by a different type of signal. And generally, we actually jam other signals. We don't exactly get jammed because we don't care about data protocols. We are just kind of having a signal that's very specific and specified for what we need. As long as the signal is received, we're okay. So in terms of the data, we even use that. But obviously, we do use basic data networks such as Bluetooth, Zigbee, LoRa as well. So those can be jammed for sure in terms of data side. Now, the data side itself is difficult. That's something I think everyone is solving. And I think there are a lot of ways to be able to create noise within a data signal, and it gets very difficult to receive data. And that's something that, as we progress as a society, data will improve, but a lot of it is channel shifting. So being able to change channels whenever a channel is not working that well is a big area, and probably one of the best areas to do that. So jamming is painful on the data side, whereas power side is not too difficult. In fact, if you're adding a signal on top of our signal, that's better. We get more power. So it's nice in that perspective.
Next question. What are the challenges that you are facing as a first mover in the industry, or like new technology in the industry, especially in educating and introducing your technology to target market?